Lights, camera, action.
I'm here with the lovely Junia.
Hi, guys.
I was like, damn, she being silent. And we're getting ready to go see the new Crow movie. Notice I say new Crow movie.
Right.
We're going to do before we see it, kind of going into the theater thoughts. To kind of gather before we come out, and then we continue this conversation. So that's how it'll be. It'll be before and then after. Brad, for sure.
So, question. I know you're leading this whole thing, but can you give us a little bit of a synopsis of this new one's about? Because, like, my brain don't want to remind me of what it is about. Is it a sequel? Is it a remake?
Oh, see, I like what your brain is, because what's pissing me off is they keep saying the remake of The Crow. Motherfucker, it's not a remake. Okay?
Don't break down.
And I'll tell you why. Is because you can look at the trailer and you can look at the cast list and you'll see it's not the same. The only thing they do is they call him Eric and her Shelley. If they hadn't done that, I swear to God, half the shit people are saying and the problems with this would go away.
That's very interesting.
Okay? Because
is it set in a specific time period? Do we know?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Because first of all, let's take a step back real quick. The Crow, the first movie,
Yeah.
Brandon Lee, should never really be remade, because that movie in itself is still different enough from the book.
Right.
Okay? It's closer to the book because it uses Top Dollar, 1010, Fun Boy. Okay? But there's a lot of
names.
there's a lot of differences in the book and in the movie. Okay? So first of all, it's like you're adapting material. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, if you were to remake it completely, you would go back to the source material and really dial into the source material. I can tell you just by watching the new movie's trailers, it didn't exactly do that.
Okay.
Okay? Now,
we call it like a re-envisioning?
See, I would just say, all I should have called is like The Crow, New Moon. The Crow, New Murder. The Crow, whatever.
What is it called right now?
The Crow.
Okay.
So like I said, all I do is throw in a tagline, because you don't have to remake The Crow. You just make a new Crow movie.
Right.
Because none of the movies are really tied together other than the idea of someone dies, they come back as the Crow.
Right. It's the legend more than anything, or the legacy of the Crow.
Okay, so The Crow, City of Angels, that movie, there's so much production craziness with it, where they shot it, edited it, and gave it its own identity. And then the Harvey Weinstein, had it re-edited, locked out the director, and tried to make it more like the first one. And then they try to tie it to the first one with the character of Sarah, now grown up, living in Los Angeles. So that's the one that tried to be sequelized, okay? Mm-hmm. And if you call it a remake, if it's man falls in love with woman, man and woman are murdered, man comes back to avenge, then every Crow is a remake.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the beats of a story and stuff, The Crow Salvation does a lot of that. And that movie could have been better, but the budget was garbage. Okay? Mm-hmm. So that is my biggest beef right now, is where they're like, oh, the remake. I don't consider it a remake. Maybe I'll talk different after we see it.
I was about to say, like, it's hard to tell when it feels like we don't have a whole lot of detail about what we're getting ready to see.
So, I mean, the story is so simple. Violent death. The spirit can't rest. Crow resurrects one of them with the powers to avenge the death.
Right.
You don't ever have to remake the movie. You just keep making another one. They've done that in the comic. They've made other Crow comics that have been a little bit different each time.
Right.
People on here have probably heard my pitch for my Crow movie. You know, worst part about that was that the sound screwed up on me, so I got to fix that. But That's my biggest beef going into this.
Yeah.
Okay, and because I mean, in the movie, the original Brandon Lee, that Brian and I had the privilege to go and see in theaters for the 30th anniversary, which was pretty dope. Not gonna lie, we had a whole game before the movie started of all the other stuff I would watch other than watching The Crow Wicked Prayer. So
a lot of stuff.
And even other people started to join in with me. And what I realized, I'll probably watch anything over The Crow Wicked Prayer.
That bad, huh?
Oh, it's so bad.
I've never seen it.
I would watch. Okay, I will say this: I will watch The Crow Wicked Prayer over like most reality TV. Like if you're like, hey, you want to watch this reality show? I'll take The Wicked Prayer.
What about? I'm gonna throw this out there because I feel like we've talked about this before. House of a Thousand Corpses.
I'll get back to you on that. But I mean, it's just bad. Has an interesting cast though.
Yeah.
It has my man David Boreanaz in it as a ridiculous character.
He's a great.
Tara Reid is an even more ridiculously miscast character.
Oh, Tara Reid.
Eddie Furlong is the Crow. Oh. Danny Trejo is in it.
Well, gotta love some Danny Trejo though.
The girl that gets murdered is, I'm gonna say her last name, Emanuela Ricci, the one who plays Lana Lang now on Superman and Lois.
Nice.
She's the one that gets killed along with Eddie
her.
Furlong. She might be the best actor in the movie.
For real?
Oh my God, Junia, I want to take you back to, because when I was in high school, so City of Angels came out in 96. Crow Salvation was supposed to come out in 99, but came out in 2000. And I remember it came out, but it was direct to video. Mm. And I kind of was interested, started watching all the series, right, in the early 2000s. And then I remember when I found out the new one was coming, and this is, really before we had this great, wonderful thing called the internet.
Right.
And I was like, oh, cool, new Crow movie. Oh, new Crow movie. And I went to this mom and pop's video store that was down the street from the house because the Hollywood Video didn't have it. There's a reason they didn't have it. Okay. I watched it, and I'm pretty sure I blacked most of that movie out of my head.
You poor thing.
Except for a couple of
scenes.
scenes.
That traumatizing.
It is that bad.
Gotcha.
I'm going to pull some scenes on YouTube and make you watch it.
Oh, boy. That sounds like a blast. I'll be honest, I haven't seen any of the other Crow movies. And I don't know if I really want to. Because the original was just so dang awesome that if you're sitting here and you're telling me that the sequels or the... I don't want to call them sequels, but the next movie...
It's an anthology series.
Yeah, so if you're telling me that they're, sketchy... as far as quality goes in all directions, like, I don't want to spend my time watching that. I don't want anything to taint the good Crow. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And that's a good thing, because with this new one, like, I'm excited because you can do a new Crow film. Because there's a lot of interesting concepts in the book, and I've talked about that before, that you could explore, like the Skull Cowboy, the fact that the Crow can actually hurt himself.
Interesting.
That's why, because in the film... There's actually a scene where Brandon Lee was cutting himself because of all the pain that he had. And that's why you'll see where he took electrical tape and he wrapped it around his wrist. Because if you watch the movie, there goes a scene where he doesn't have the electrical tape. Then all of a sudden he does. Mm. And then they have the Skull Cowboy, who's kind of like a Reaper type character that was cut from the film. So there's elements that are in the book that could trickle into a film to make it more interesting. Now, everyone's so pissed about, how are you going to do this to Brandon Lee with a new Eric Draven? Have they never heard of The Crow Stairway to Heaven? Where Mark Dacascos played Eric Draven and looks like Brandon Lee?
No, probably not, because I haven't. I hadn't before you started watching it, and I remember sitting and watching a little bit of it with you.
The first two episodes are basically like the movie redone, but like cheaply done for TV with a different ending and then that show goes into a whole...
Why would you do that?
Why
would you redo it for the TV? Like, why not just let that be the thing and then just start?
Why not? If you wanted to do a Crow television series, why not just do a new character? Because one of the more interesting episodes I was fascinated with that show was the episode where Eric does later meet another Crow that's a woman and her story and stuff. Like, I think The Crow would be neat as like an anthology series of like 6 episodes.
Almost like the crows getting passed down from like person to person and situation to situation.
Each season's a new crow and the different stories that you can mine. Because the one thing I liked about City of Angels was it was a father-son.
You know what could be really cool about that? Is if you had some kind of a detective or something that was like a through thread, from, like almost like following the crow and knowing about the legend and coming into it and seeing what's going on with, the first person that goes through that. Anyway, that's a whole thing.
If you say I pitched that to you right now, like as an exec, what I could do is you use the first movie as the basis, right? Mm-hmm. And then you have like the son of Ernie Hudson's character.
Yeah.
Like you open up with Ernie Hudson, like terminal cancer dying. And he's telling his son, who's a cop, and his son doesn't believe him and all this, but he like has some proof. We bring in the character of Sarah or, to help it. And then that child is after his dad dies, something happens where he interacts with something or hears about some like the crow.
Sees it in his dream.
And then he's the one that goes on he's your through character.
And he's so like enraptured by the legend.
And he's trying to prove it.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Something along those lines.
That would be really cool.
And then each season, like I said, and then eventually like you get to where he interacts and helps the crow on their mission. And then he becomes like kind of this earth guardian protector that the actual crow bird knows and has a sense about. So when a new crow is to be born,
there's someone to help walk that person
right
through
like
that.
It could be really interesting. And like I said, you make it this anthology series, so where each season they are going through a new story, because like I said, it
reminds me of like Ghostwriter or something like that for some reason.
Yeah, I mean it's there because the thing is the crow person is resurrected to avenge. Okay, and they only have so much time. I think, like, if you look at the template of the first movie as far as the ticking clock, it's like 1 day.
Yeah.
Or 2 days.
Right.
Okay, he doesn't have a whole lot of time. In the series, what pissed me off was they moved away from him being about vengeance and revenge, and it got weird. I didn't watch all of it. I did enough to get a sense of the tone. But then, like, his crow makeup would, like, almost come on like he's, like, a morphed into action kind of thing. Like, he'd be a regular face, then he'd be like, and like the makeup would be there, like he's
very Batman-esque.
I'm like,
where it's like, where did the black eyes come into play?
Like, but the crow is about sorrow and pain.
Yeah.
And the book is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And you have to mine that in your character. Mm. So you can't really have a happy ending, because even though they've got their revenge, it's still not justice.
No, and honestly, sometimes the best stories are the ones without happy endings. Sometimes the realness of the situation is what we connect to. And I'm very intrigued to see what we connect to in this one.
I'm going to say one of the biggest missteps that the Crow films have had, all of them. Mm. The first one, teetered the line, is the villains.
Like making them too cheesy?
That, or like they're all in touch. Like the villain in the City of Angels is so ridiculous. Like he's a drug lord who's like thinks he's some sort of like messianic prophet.
Yeah.
Who likes to inflict pain. Is Judah. And like, I mean, it's just so bizarre out there.
Yeah. That
it doesn't feel real. And they're all knowledgeable about the supernatural stuff. And they always have like some sort of like person in their group who's like a witch. Like, You know what I'm saying? Like, it just, in the third movie, is not about Superman, but there's some weird crap that the villain's into that's very unnormal.
So you don't want it to be about the supernatural?
No, because I don't need a supernatural villain. Because this
crow is supernatural enough within itself.
Yeah, and like they don't need to quickly figure out like, oh, if we hurt the bird, we hurt him.
Right.
Like kill the bird. Like like we don't have to follow the template the first movie set for every movie. Because I'm always about, let's go back to the source material.
Right.
Okay? That original book. What was set out in that book that we can mine from and change for our story compared to just going back to that movie that made its own set of rules?
Right.
I mean, Michael Wincott's amazing as Top Dollar. He got some great lines in that movie. Okay, like, but that's one thing I'm worried about here. Is we're gonna get another villain who's like supernatural or something? Because the whole point was it was a couple that were brutally murdered that were in the wrong place at the wrong time.
And the crow was like some messenger from the universe to help them balance the scales.
Exactly. And the idea that you have this person who is unstoppable, an unstoppable force coming, puts fear in the villains, but he's also his own worst enemy because he's living with the torment over and over and the suffering.
Right.
So, I mean, that ends up, I don't need them to be like, well, we killed the bird.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm like, okay, what's our villain angle?
Yeah.
I mean, for everything I'm saying, people, go listen to my pitch for the Crow Crucifixion.
If you can hear it.
Yeah, if you can. Damn it. I tried to fix it as best I can. I need to sit down and like listen to it and re-record it.
See, I was able to hear the whole thing. It was like a little, sound like you were in like a copper box or something like that.
Yeah, because what happened is I like to record stuff when I'm driving, like pitches and stuff that's on my mind.
Yeah.
But the car I had for work, it connected to the car.
Yeah.
So it was picking up through the car's microphone instead of my phone's. So I thought I had the phone right here talking into it.
And
it was picking up through the car. So it's very spaced. But
hey, it's still a really good pitch when you sit back and you listen to it all. So, and I like your thought process.
Thank you. She's not just saying that because she's my wife. She tells me I'm wrong all the time.
I do.
I am excited. Like, okay. So this new film originally there was, when they wanted to make a new movie / remake, we went through Luke Evans, Jason Momoa, and now we have Bill Skarsgård.
I like Bill Skarsgård, just in general.
I think he's a great actor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, amazing. My question, though, is he leading man?
Well,
because
I think we'll find out in this one.
And because I think everything he's done, I didn't see Boy Kills World he was in, because I didn't even really look into it. But everything else he's done, he's been amazing in, but he's always more of the secondary character or
a villain.
Yeah. Like, I mean, his Pennywise is ridiculous.
Well, I mean, but that's kind of the test of a good actor, is to be able to move through different characters and for people to be able to see you in different lights. So, I mean, it's going to be new, and we'll see how it goes.
I don't recommend the movie Barbarian, except for like the first 20 or 30 minutes. Because it's like, everyone keeps talking about how great this horror movie was.
I have no idea what it is.
It's like, oh, it's so good, right? So I sat down to watch it, and I was okay. And like, the beginning of it feels like a short film. It all of a sudden has a massive turn that goes into another movie. Mm. But that beginning with Bill Skarsgård is so good, because I'll spoil it for you. I'll spoil it for everybody. Sorry. Turn it off right now. Turn. But he's actually a good guy. And what it is this, it's a new Airbnb that's like in this bad neighborhood. This girl shows up late at night and they double booked the Airbnb. Mm-hmm. So it's him and her in this house. And it's very tense. Because you're like, oh my God. Because, you know, it's Bill. Like, he has this vibe. It can be real creepy, but also comforting.
Right.
So, but he is a good guy. So it's not like he hurts or anything. But you feel the whole time the anxiety.
Yeah.
But the twist is there's something like in the basement, some like locked up monster freak that kills them all. I mean, it was just like, okay, I'm done. And then Justin Long shows up and he gets murdered.
Poor Justin Long.
But, I mean, it was really great because he was able to... That tension was there. So, I mean, he's an amazing actor. So, I mean, that's where I have my faith. Rupert Sanders, the director... I always get him and this other director. He's either the one that directed Snow White and the Huntsman, or he directed the first... Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Mm. I always get those two directors mixed up for some reason, because I think they both names are Rupert. I'm running out here, but yeah, I'm excited because I want a good Crow movie. I like the concept.
You always have.
I always have. Like I
have too.
Like the Crow. I was a Crow for Halloween before a couple times. Actually, it's a simple costume. But you can always do it your own style, too.
Right. It doesn't have to be something that's cookie cutter Eric Draven.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're going to see how everything plays out. So we'll be back.
Yeah.
With our thoughts.
Stay tuned. I guess.
And we're back. Just out of the movie. Me and the hot one, also known as Junia here.
The hot one, that's new.
Yeah, you are the hot one. The hottest person that's been on this podcast. But that I mean like on any of my podcasts. So you don't listen to them all the time. How I praise you. But, all right, here's my first thought. 1, this movie is not a remake and should have never been listed as so. That was a dumbass move. It needed a subtitle, The Crow, New Beginning, The Crow Extortionist, The Crow Requiem. Actually, that could be kind of cool. Like, the musical theme, Requiem.
Yeah, that could be cool.
You know, something like that. Like, I'll workshop it, okay? The only thing in here that I think shortchanged this movie right off the bat was by using the names Eric and Shelley.
Definitely should have been
Aaron and Hella. That's what I was... I don't know. Just anything else. Because by using Eric and Shelley, it definitely made everyone think, oh, it's a remake. And it's not a remake.
No.
Like I said before, the story is simple and was used in 3 Crow movies.
But I wonder...
Man and woman in love, murdered.
I wonder if Eric and Shelley was because they were trying to reference more of a comic than anything else. You know what I mean?
Which, that is a fascinating statement. Because I was thinking about, they didn't say his name was Draven or Shelley Webster. They never gave them last names in this movie.
No, they didn't. Which
is great, because that was one of the things that annoyed me in the other movies, because you had Eric Draven, Ash Corvin, Alex Corvus, Jimmy Cuervo. Because they kept trying to make their last names reference the bird, the phylum, the labeling of the crows.
Right.
Which got just a little like, come on, dude, really? Like,
makes sense for him, but like, why do we have to do it with everybody?
Like, Draven was cool because they were like trying to make it like the Raven, you know. But yeah, they never gave them last names in this movie.
Right. Which was very interesting. Also, I don't know if it was... like, the costuming was interesting to me. Like, I don't know. It was just kind of like very weird in some ways. But I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed the movie. As predicted, is my second favorite Crow movie. I will watch it again when it comes out to kind of really meditate on some of the scenes, because there's a couple of scenes that felt very oddly, awkwardly placed. Like they filmed it and then didn't know where to put them.
So you and I talked about some of the things that we expected for this movie before we went to see it. And one of the things that you mentioned was like a longer Eric and Shelley story in the beginning, which we got.
Yeah, we got.
We got a good amount of that, and I would even argue maybe too much of that. Because it was redundant at times. We were beating the same things over and over again. And it didn't sell more of their love to me. It was like you could have still had that present without having to revisit the same things over and over again.
I agree, because we're going to be all over the place talking about this. And it'll be spoiler too, so enjoy. That's your warning. And go. I felt his love for her. She came off to me as a petulant child who may be retarded or developmentally delayed. I work with those people. I have to use those terminology with work and have before. So I say that as a person who knows the signs to look for and compassion. Because some of her responses and behaviors, I'm like, you just seem like you are a child.
She did have a very childish kind of quality to her. And I think they were trying to pass it off as somebody who's like carefree, lighthearted, fun. You know, somebody who helps him to come up out of the darkness and into more of his light. But I feel like we didn't get enough of that. It was very like sexual, sensual rather than...
Because if that's what you're going to do...
Rather than love. You know what I mean?
If that's what you were going to do with her character, then you shouldn't have gave it the storyline that you gave her.
Yeah.
Because I looked at Junia, and two of my things I hate they did in this movie. One, he died and came back pretty much right away.
But the also odd thing about that, because you're saying it as a, our constructed timeline. But the truth of the matter is that in the multiple times that he went to the other side,
which was a new thing, which was kind of cool,
which I really enjoyed. Yes. It was like time stood still in some ways, and they even rewound time and brought him back at a different time a couple of times as well. So it is very interesting because it wasn't always he died, beat, he came back like 10 minutes later, our time. Sometimes it was he died or he went to the other side and it was like 10 seconds later.
Yeah.
But when he's on the other side, it's longer.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it felt like we were dealing with like a fluctuation of time that we don't even understand fully.
Well, speaking of time, one thing in this that was weird is if you watch this story from Eric and Shelley's point of view, it seems like they're together for a while. Like just months.
We don't have any timeline whatsoever to go off of.
We don't, but it seems like they're together for a little while.
But then we had that whole situation with the dude at the club, which made it feel like it was what? Like a day?
Yeah, but if you jump in and you look at things from the plot, from like the villain side and what's going on, it feels like it's maybe like a 3 or 4 day period.
Right.
But if you look at stuff they try to establish that Eric and Shelley were going through, it feels like a lot of time passed.
Right, and I think they were trying to sell that fact with like the photos in the apartment, things like that. But then I'm also like, I'm looking at that apartment that they say, like she initially shows it to Eric and she's like, yeah, my friend lets me stay here sometimes when he's gone. You know what I mean? And I just thought it was humorous because I'm like, how freaking long is this dude gone for? Like, because when you don't understand the timeline at first, you're thinking that, months have passed here, that they've been in love and been together and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's awkward.
I mean, I was wondering if that was even her apartment at one point because you see like her mom's place and her setup and stuff, and her backstory is very convoluted of what they're trying to sell us on. And this story doesn't have to be convoluted. No. It's a simple, they fall in love. And if you had done something, I would have liked if, so they meet like in a juvie. It's not juvie because it makes it feel like they're like young. But
it's a recovery center. Yeah. Is what they call it. That's what the name of it is. Something recovery center. Can't remember exactly what it's called. They all wear pink.
And if you would have done that, they busted out and was heading to the city. And they said, let's get out of here. She's like, he's like, where do you want to go? She's like, anywhere. And then you like jumped 1 year later and the bad guys caught up with them because like something happened where her phone was activated or somebody spotted her or something, like on tour type thing. Yeah. And then they caught up with them. That would have been great. Because my thought is, why would you go back to the city? The same city.
It was quite unintelligent in my mind. And things also weren't fully explained in that way. I felt like it was like two dumb kids making dumb decisions. And not just dumb decisions, but like really dumb decisions. Because you had to be an idiot to go back to the same place that, your friend has been killed and whatnot. And I know that she doesn't fully like know that at that point. But
even then you're escaping the video that's on her phone. And wouldn't that video be in the cloud too? So even if you got the video on her phone, like it's in the cloud.
Like the story kind of reminded me of like a Romeo and Juliet-esque kind of vibe. And what I mean by that is like that immature love. Yeah. Where it's like... I'm sorry, I'm laughing because I'm thinking about my love for you and how very vastly different it is from the love that was portrayed in that movie just now, because if we go off of the love that's portrayed in that movie, is you have two people who are making decisions for themselves without thinking about the consequences of their actions, you know, and pretending as if they live in their own bubble.
Yeah.
You know, but not recognizing that the real world is literally right there to, like, bite them in the ass.
Well, I mean, when they go back...
Can I say that?
Yeah. When they go back, they get out of recovery center. Like, they go... He has an apartment. You know, so he goes back to his apartment. It's not like he was locked up in jail or anything.
Right.
You know, so he has an apartment that they go back to. But like I said, it just feels like they have lived in lives together before. And like I said,
yeah, like things are worn in a little bit, especially when we get like scenes with her and him making music together and stuff like that. Like, it seems like that stuff has been developing, you know?
You know, when, like I said, I liked him. The opening scene with the horse and the barbed wire, I know it like really shocked you and hurt you because you have such a love for horses.
Animals.
But to me, it was exciting just because they used a lot of the imagery that's straight from the book that Eric describes seeing that when he was younger.
mean, it was beautifully tragic, just like the whole movie.
So that was just cool as someone who, like I said, I just recently reread The Crow a couple months ago.
I'm not gonna lie, like, there's so many things I really liked about this movie.
There were some great shots and imagery of, like, him with
the crow and, like, him with his makeup.
But it took so long to get there.
It did. It was too much.
You know what it reminded me of? Power Rangers.
Oh, the new one?
Yeah.
Yeah, where it takes them forever to morph?
Yeah, but you like it. Like, you're going on this journey, and I'm like, I'm digging these people and their story, but I need something, like, and it takes too long before he actually becomes the crow. Like, he gets, where he fully embraces his ability and really, but they change up the mythos, which I appreciate because it's so vague in the book of what's actually happening, and every movie stuck to the template that was created by the first film as far as, like, how his powers and stuff worked. That I like that they changed, but something that I liked they changed, I really liked in this. One, they wasn't like, oh, the bird's his sense of power, kill the bird, the bird's dead.
Yeah, you mentioned that you didn't want that to be the thing.
The line that as long as your love stays pure, he's back and can't be killed.
Yeah, I like that too.
But if he lost his pure love for her and doubted,
which he got there for a minute.
Yeah. And, you know, so, and that was an interesting thing that I kind of got to watch it again to see how exactly everything plays out, because he basically sells his soul, trades it with hers to be damned. And she's going to hell, and we'll get there in a minute. But then the bad guy tries to steal his power. So I'm like, did they cancel each other out? Like,
so, but that's the thing. The whole freaking point of the crow's power is not vengeance, it's love. So if, at least that's what we were sold in this, you know, storyline here. So if that's the case, and the bad guy is sitting there trying to gain the power of the crow, you know, which I wish they would have explained this more. I wish that they would have gone with that a little bit further, where, like, Eric came back and he's like, you think that's going to work for you. It's not. You have no love inside of you. You know what I mean? Like, something like that.
Yeah, when the bad guy's telling him, Rogue, or I think was his name, but it wasn't spelled like you'd expect.
Yeah.
When he's like, I know that, you're empty, full of hate. And if he was like, no, I'm full of the love. Or something like that, like, I'm full of love for her. And my love now is vengeance.
I'm full of the love, man.
You know what I'm saying? Something like that, where it's the idea that he's not full of this hate. He's not empty because his love for her changed him. And there's some great subtle acting that Bill did when it came to just his mannerisms, and when you, like, he portrayed someone who's a soft, broken person whose exterior he makes look hard and tough because he's not tough on the inside.
My mom was not a huge fan of Bill tonight, but I was. I was a huge fan. I thought he did a great job. I really enjoyed his subtle acting in his eyes in particular, which I know he's got huge eyes, but like he has this ability to be able, he really works with his eyebrows really well. And he can convey a message through his eyebrows. And he did that through the makeup even. And I thought that was really cool. Because I watched that. I watch for that stuff with actors. If you can't act with your eyes, are you really acting?
Let's just say The Crow, the book, is emo. It's a meditation on grief.
And he looks like emo. He straight up looks emo, acts emo in this movie. And I feel like she's trying to be this bright, shining light to him, but we don't get that.
Her first lines. I get her delivery, her sound, everything about her was annoying. I'm sorry.
The actress was not my favorite for the role of Shelley. There are so many other better options. I mentioned that she was kind of like a knockoff Zoe Kravitz.
Discount Zoe Kravitz.
Yeah.
Say it right there. Discount Zoe Kravitz.
Discount Zoe Kravitz. You know, and I think it's maybe because they were trying to push that angle a little bit too much, maybe even, you know, and it needed somebody who bounced off of Bill better, because I did not feel the chemistry on her side of things.
No, like I said, I believed it from him. But enough about talking about Discount Zoe Kravitz.
The actress might be great for something else. All right, but this is just not it.
Like I said, she's not Shelley, like you need a different character because it's not a remake. It's not.
You needed somebody who, I don't know. I felt like the whole situation needed to be less of that like sensual, lusty kind of vibe, and more about like her making him laugh. Her like brightening him up, bringing him up a level, you know, from where he normally is. You know, like one of my least favorite parts, I think, was when they got back from their recovery center or whatever, and they both did drugs and like drank alcohol together. And I felt like that was just, it was such a, I don't know, like almost going backwards.
Yeah.
You know, kind of a thing where we're actually just together because we've got that, what is that trauma bond.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Instead of like a real bond. It didn't feel real.
One thing that was neat is when they're doing the exercise about when they're in the circle, like if you felt this way, step forward. If you felt this way, step forward. And those two kept stepping forward. And then I can't remember exactly what the like counselor person says about seeing your future in front of you, and the way it is, it's them two just looking at each other.
Yeah.
I thought that was really like cool. But like back to like, if they had done something where like there was drugs and Eric like was tempted like to do it, but then he kind of just looked at her and was like, and put it down, and then just kind of kept smiling, like laughing with her, and was like,
we don't need this.
He didn't need that. Like, because
the whole point is that she's supposed to be this like uplift.
There's something about her. Yeah. Exactly. So their relationship, that's like the big thing. So you have to buy the love, and you know, in the original film, you have the love aspect coming from three ways. You have Eric, who comes back, who's telling about his love. You have Ernie Hudson, just the love of just these two people, of how he stayed with her through the hospital. Right. And then you have the little girl, Sarah, who loved Shelley like was a sister. Like it was her friend.
And Sarah saw the relationship.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're experiencing you're getting a little bit of picture from these characters about what they had, even though you don't get a lot from Shelley, but you see it through Eric and the people that were affected.
We only had one line of that in this movie. One line of an outside perspective that was like, oh man, I saw how she looked at you, and it was different.
Yeah.
And like that was the line, pretty much. You know,
because she wouldn't leave without him.
Yeah. And I just felt like it was, I don't know, man. Like
there's a headbutting of story because you have mother going against daughter, or daughter going against mother. You have so let's talk about the villain. Right away, I was pissed.
I didn't mind it, but I understand.
Because he's basically a dude who sold his soul to the devil, as long as he sent the devil innocent souls.
I think it would have been very interesting instead of like us being like stay in that supernatural zone, sure, but like the whole selling the soul to the devil is just such a cliche thing. Like if it was something that he picked up from like, I don't know, you've got the crow in this zone, what would be another like animal totem basically?
Well, in the Stairway to Heaven, people who die who are evil people can come back as snakes.
So maybe that would have been a better like direction to come from. Something along those lines, rather than just being this cliche, he's got powers from the devil. He's got this voice. That's what everybody said.
Yeah. Like
he's got this voice, but we never got explanation for what the heck
it was like
that was.
Demon voice, deep voice that would like make your eyes go white and you would do whatever you're being told.
But we don't know what contract he actually
and that's
created.
Like, this ain't fucking Ghost Rider.
Yeah. And that's... I got that vibe a lot, actually, that it was Ghost Rider. I also really wanted people to be scared of Eric in this, and I don't feel like he had that opportunity to really put fear into people.
I mean, some of the best looking shots of the film was like once he puts on the makeup, and what I thought was neat is you get twofold. You get the black blood that powers him kind of thing, and then he takes tattoo ink where he finishes his tattoo and he uses the tattoo ink, and that's what he does to make his makeup face.
Which I really like the idea of ink.
I do too, because I like at least they brought back the comedy tragedy match through her tattoo, that he gets one just like it.
That's pretty cool.
And then it was in her room when he was there too. She had the masks.
Yeah.
So they brought that back, which is the reason for, the face. But like we meet her mom, and that whole thing. Like it just felt like that was a whole other storyline that we needed to explore. That was like either explore that story, tell us that story, or just cut it out and make it more simplistic. If we're just following Eric.
There was a lot there that I feel like we could have gone more detail into rather than all of the relationship stuff in the beginning, because that stuff took up a good chunk of the first half of the movie.
Which would have been fine if it wasn't like the same beats of the relationship. Oh, let me watch her dance. Oh, montage type essence of us just embracing and staring at each other. Her asking some really deep, awkward questions right after meeting her.
Her taking off my clothes.
Yeah.
Me taking off her clothes. Us running around in a robe.
Us getting it on.
For real. It was just the same stuff, different moment.
In different locations.
Yeah. And it was like, it just was redundant, like I said earlier, and you could have used your time better there. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to say that. Also, a good relationship, and we see this from the first Crow movie, like we were sold on Eric and Shelley from the first Crow movie, and they didn't have any time together in the beginning, really. So we had all of this time, and I was not sold on Eric and Shelley in this movie as far as their relationship goes. Mm-hmm. So less is more sometimes.
Yeah.
I feel like there could have been a happy medium with that, and then we could have allowed more time for explanation in other areas, like her relationship with her mother. All we needed with that would be a good solid scene between her and mom. We didn't get that.
Yeah, like I'm glad.
Or like her mom and Eric, where she brought Eric in, mom disapproved or something like that, and there was like a blow up between the two of them, and he pulled her out of the situation. Something along those lines, so that we see that there's issues between mom and daughter, and maybe where that connection or that issue lies. Maybe she doesn't trust her mom because of where her mom's put her with this dude, Rogue, so she brings that up to her mom in that situation, When
the movie starts, you have that like quick like background flashback of him with the horse, and then it's like I could have done without the way they did the opening credits, like the whole like kind of like blood bubble,
the Dexter vibe credits
kind of thing.
Yeah.
We just need the title card fade in of the Crow. What's interesting, the title card font It's not the same font they used on all the posters and everything for it.
It is different.
But then it's like, I would have...
We had no explanation as to why the horse was significant. It's
the thing that he loved. That's the whole thing. He's talking over. It's like when something that you love, like he loved his horse. That's all he loved. You got the vibe that his parents, his mom was there. His only didn't care for him.
Right, but it was such a.
It should have been longer.
Time.
It should have been longer. It should have actually let us go into it. And
how did he feel with his mom? Like what?
She should have been yelling at him about like, I'm gonna put that horse down. That horse has always been a pain to me. You know, and he's like, no, Mommy, no. Like, let me save it. Let me save it. And like, then he's picking it up, trying, and then you like cut to the him talking like about love, and then the crow, and then you go. I don't know if I would have went right into like the Shelley scene, because I feel like that Shelley scene was really awkward of just like her getting this. Hey, you got this video? Okay. Like, I don't know. Like, it would have been more interesting if like we would have discovered that, if we would have went into like the crow and it starts and it's him rubbing his hand.
Maybe that's part of my problem is they put too much attention on her and less attention on him.
So yeah, I'm saying that. So we had that opening scene expanded. We go into title card and it's him standing there and they're yelling at him and he's rubbing his hand. And then we're introduced to Shelley through him and go on the adventure of who she is with him.
Right.
So we start to learn about what happened, why people are chasing her, how she got here with him.
Right. So we're not seeing it through.
So we have no other context.
I like that idea.
Of what happened before she was taken.
Because they and I didn't really realize it until I said it just now, like they really put more emphasis on her than they did him in a lot of ways. They like elevated the crap out of that woman, like in this movie, and it wasn't something that needed that. It was like too much time spent on this one character.
But
also someone who just should not have been this character.
Yeah, because I mean that's how you really start your movie. Like, you don't start it with Bill, you start with her, and from her first scene and talking, I was like,
yeah.
I just immediately was just like, ugh.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, Danny Houston always plays a bad guy. Seems like the same bad guy in everything. And I mean, he didn't really have much to do in this movie. He just kind of sit around and give orders.
Yeah.
Like I said, you had a supernatural villain, and I wasn't sold on it, but
it wasn't as bad as it could have been. It wasn't cheesy.
I mean, like I said, he reminded me a little bit of Judah from City of Angels, but he wasn't as bad as that character, because that.
Can I talk about one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie?
Yeah.
One of my favorite scenes in the whole movie was also the most gory scene in the whole movie.
Yeah, we were getting yeah, because I don't mind the violence. I expect a little over the top violence, but some of the just gore, I was like, it's a little too much.
I agree with that statement.
Like, in a different movie, I'm fine with it, but I don't want it in this movie.
So we agree that they over-sensualized things on one end, and over-gored things. Glorified
yep.
things.
Things like that.
What the heck is that word?
On the Gore Report.
Yes. But, you know, we're not dealing with a horror movie. You know, we're dealing with a tragedy. And we don't have to make it crazy. Like, we don't have to go, like, too far one way or too far the other way. Like, let's find more of a balance here. But I did love that scene. And why did I love that scene, Tyler?
Because it's juxtaposition between him walking into the opera and going up and, like, murdering these guards and everything that come 2 by 2, basically.
For the most part.
While there's an opera going on at the same time.
Yeah, but that's the balance of it too, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know? So it was a really cool, well-balanced scene in that way. So you're not getting a whole lot of, there's no like dialogue really. It's just really like the music and the violence together. And you flash between that scene of him annihilating these guards and the scene of the actual like opera going on. And I just, from an artistic standpoint, I find that scene to be beautifully directed and created. For me, it would just be a little bit less gore. Yeah,
like the violence was fine as far as like him fighting, and like I think he should have got the sword a little bit later, because like once he had the sword, it was on. I love like when he's walking, you know, he's got the makeup and he's walking down the road and like the bird, like all that imaging I was fine with. I liked it. I appreciated that.
I didn't even mind that he threw the heads into the audience, as weird as that sounds. Like, I thought that was kind of impactful.
Yeah. I mean,
I would have liked it better had what's his name been watching from, like, say he was watching the opera
from the balcony,
from being at home or something like that. You know, he was like dialed into it because that's his jam. Like, he loves classical music. Yeah. We know this. So like, if he was dialed in, he was watching it, then somehow Eric knew about it, and then he took the heads and he threw them in the audience.
He just kind of stared. Like,
and he stares at the freaking camera or whatever. Like, that would have been more impactful to me. Mm-hmm. But it was still a great scene.
So let's talk about the other side. Mm-hmm. Which was like a warehouse with the railroad tracks. And like the water was used a lot for representation of crossing over and transition.
It was like the veil.
Mm-hmm. So there's a guy there that doesn't ever get a name that, to me, feels like a reinterpretation, more of like the Skull Cowboy.
I was just thinking that, yeah.
And even if you looked at his neck, he had a scar on his neck. Like maybe he had died in some way. You know, Eric goes over and he sends Eric back, and when he sends him back, he comes back, and we see like he gets hurt, and we watch him heal. It's really kind of neat how he heals.
I do like that.
But he gets jacked up a couple of times. He gets run over. But he doesn't come back like with the drive of vengeance. He doesn't come back with that like anger, that power. Like he comes back kind of as still that doting, like you said, channeling some Anakin Skywalker episode 2. Boyish, you know.
Yeah, instead of like, why didn't we go full on Sith here?
Yeah,
you
like
know what I mean?
Because that was my thing. He's supposed to come back as like this powerful spirit of vengeance, and he's stronger. And you know, even in the book, like he slowly starts to build his humanity back at times. But like in the book, when he goes up against the people he's targeting to kill, he is confident, and he is not wisecracking like a Deadpool or a Spider-Man, but more like,
I know that I have you.
Yeah.
Like I know that I am in control in this situation. And nothing that you do is going to screw with me.
Yeah, and he messes with him, you know. And then when he's alone, it's very mournful and sorrowful, but he's meditating on his pain, because the book was written, James O'Bear grieving and meditating on his pain.
Yeah.
So, you know, he comes back and it's just like he's hanging out, and like, because that's my, like, some of the scenes where like he's back from the dead and like he's just kind of chilling, like normal, like with his friend or whatever. But then when he basically goes back the last time and makes the quote unquote trade for her and comes back, and that's when he's like, you know, he got the black blood, he comes back.
He was like imbued with the crow power more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when we get him actually being like hardcore. Like he gets the shotgun and takes the dude out and everything, and that's when it was like, okay, cool.
Cool.
That's what you wanted to see. Like, you wanted to see this force, this unstoppable force. And I really like that it was never like him losing his power like it is in every other movie. So when he gets to the main villain, like he has no power left. They tried to kind of do that, but it really didn't play out like that. So that was cool. So the way they're murdered was weird. And I say that because I'm watching the way it's filmed, and I'm looking at Bill, and I'm just like, God, that's horrible. Like, and then I'm looking at her, and I'm like, you're a fucking idiot.
Why do you say that?
If you watch the way it's directed, her hands are here. Okay? And she's grabbing at it.
For real.
Okay? You couldn't see me because there's audio. But her hands are free around her neck grabbing at it. They're not like holding her hands back on her.
Right.
Okay? She could have took her finger and popped the bag. She's obviously never seen Four Brothers. That's what Tyrese says to the dude. He's like, most people go for the belt. They don't think about tearing the bag.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay? But him, the way it's shot, his hands are down.
Yeah.
Like, he's stuck. And you just see it sucking into his mouth. And I was like, that's horrible. But, so, I mean, I was just kind of like I'm watching this scene, like, I'm looking at her performance, and I'm like, I'm looking at his, like, heartbreaking.
I feel you, dude. I feel you.
But, you know, on the other side, like, I thought it was a really cool interpretation as being this in-between place.
Yeah.
Because, you know, in the end, she is freed from being damned to hell, and she's actually returns to life, which was different. I thought it was going to be, you know, he frees her and she goes on.
Uh-huh.
You know, but she gets to return to life, and he's stuck there. Like, because I thought he was supposed to go to hell.
I thought that's what it was going to happen, too.
And that's why I think it gets convoluted when the bad guy tries to steal his power and everything. It, like...
I was confused about that whole situation, so now is he just stuck as the Crow?
In between worlds?
Yeah, but he can move in between worlds?
Can he? Like, you know, I always like the idea...
The Crow's power... I didn't mean to interrupt you, but the Crow's power is supposed to be that you move between worlds, because that's the whole point of having that black blood within you. Then you are able to...
In this, yeah.
Shift.
In this one.
That's what he's talking about.
So... That would make sense if he could, like, go back as a spirit of vengeance or something. But I always like the idea of, like, in stories where someone makes that type of sacrifice and there's that saving grace. You know, I'm not saying, like, we're going to have, like, because you're dealing with forces of the other world beyond, like, heaven, hell, God, however you want to look at it. But, like, this idea that he did it out of love, he sacrificed himself, the ultimate sacrifice, and that there's forgiving grace in that.
Right.
And that him and her could have both went on to heaven.
Yeah.
Basically, together. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe she could have made the sacrifice to do that with him.
You know,
that would have been kind of a cool twist at the end.
Or like, you know, it's like you want to be that hard edge, like, I'm damned and I'll be here for a bit. You know, whatever. Just like, yeah! But like, it would have been cool if it was like, she got to return to life and then it was like, Eric, you get to move on. And then being like, this kind of like, I didn't think I was.
I think it could have been poetic, and I'll reiterate this because I think I lost it a little bit, but it might have been a little poetic if he made that sacrifice for her. He was okay to be damned, and the dude, whoever he was, the messenger of the Crow, came back and was like, you know, talking to both of them at the end and was like, you know, you or Shelley, you can go back, or if you choose to, you can stay with Eric and move on. You know, so she has, like, this moment of choosing whether to sacrifice the life that she had to be with him in the afterlife. I think that would be very interesting.
And then they both move on to heaven together.
For real. That
would have been better. So she returns to life, and she's being resuscitated. And it's them laying there in his apartment. And the EMT is the guy. I'm calling him the small cowboy. I don't care. That brought her back. And they say that he fought but couldn't. And it's like shortly after they died.
Yeah.
Is when she returns.
Yeah.
So, one, that's a time dilation because everything that he did still occurred.
Right.
Because we see before so he has the same tattoo on his hand that says "Cry now, cry later" for the comedy and tragedy.
Right.
But what we see is he was getting it done, and she interrupted the guy that was her friend that was doing it. And he gave up, and then Eric finishes it in which is the font that they use for the crow on the poster. So that when he finishes the tattoo on his hand, for cry later. Mm-hmm. And that's part of the ink that he uses on his face.
Right.
It's there on his hand as he's laying next to her.
So we know that everything that happened. It's the thing that ties you back to it. That's why I talked about the time jumping aspect of things that's going on here in this film. So it's not linear at all. None of it is linear.
It is and it isn't. That's what's crazy. It's like I said, with him and Shelley, and I don't know if that's an oversight in the production or if it's supposed to be, but I'm telling you, I would have preferred if we hadn't met Shelley at the beginning. We went through this process. I mean, even cut out them killing Shelley's friend.
Yeah.
Like, just let the story of Eric and Shelley start to go on, and then you find out that people are coming for her, and they get killed, and you're like, whoa, what? Who is this? And then when he comes back, he starts unraveling what happened. Mm. And then that's the mystery or whatever. Like, you still do the scene of the guy who sees them, and we're watching like, whoa, that's weird.
Yeah.
Just like Eric is looking like, what's going on? And then we find out about, we shouldn't even got the villain to, the midpoint.
I agree with that statement.
You know what I'm saying? When after he comes back and he's unraveling, then all of a sudden we do this cut to Danny Houston watching the girl play or whatever. That's when I would have brought him in, sitting there listening to her play in the empty room when they hand him the phone.
Would have been more haunting if she was crying and playing at the same time.
Ooh, she was feeling the music, and it was, yeah.
No, I was thinking more along the lines of she was afraid, so she played.
Oh, but see, she was the next innocent to be corrupted.
That's what I'm trying to say. So if that's the case, she already felt, and we knew that she was uncomfortable with him.
Well, she was, especially after he went to visit Shelley's mom and came back and got in the car.
She was uncomfortable for the very beginning, though. Because there's so much in that woman's face. Okay. You need to watch it again. Okay. Because there's so much. I paid attention to her the whole time. She was freaking terrified of him. I think she could feel that something was off.
I will say that this movie was close to 2 hours?
Yeah.
I think you can make it a good solid 90 minutes.
100%.
A solid 90 minutes.
So an hour and a half.
Yeah. I think maybe hour 40. Let me get in there and check out some stuff. I mean, I think changing some elements, like I said, with the villain storyline.
Cutting down on the stuff in the beginning.
Especially, but there were some funny parts, but it's okay. I'm trying to think of a good example, but it's when you're told information and then you see information. It's in Man of Steel, okay? We get the whole opening prologue, right? We see it, we experience it. But then that entire thing is basically told to us again from Jor-El to Kal-El when Kal-El meets Jor-El on the ship.
Right.
You're being double, and then a horrible example, and I just remember thinking this, is the Tom Cruise Mummy, when this one set of information, you're seeing it, you're told it again. You don't do that. We don't have to keep being given
over
the same...
and over and over
and that's what a lot of the beats with their relationship was.
Yeah, I agree.
That same kind of moment.
Yeah.
Again and again. All right. So we don't keep beating the dead horse. Yeah.
Like the movie did a little bit.
I like Bill. There's some scenes I think he was a little off on, but overall, I think he did very well. And like I told you, I feel like it was his maybe second. I haven't seen all of his movies. I've seen some, but I think this is his biggest kind of star leading man film. Mm-hmm. So
I wished that he would have had another
co-star. Emilia Clarke. I don't know why that just popped in my head.
She might be a little too old for the role, but yeah.
I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there. I mean, I would have taken it better than what we got. He could have been a blow-up doll, and I would have bought his acting better. What would you rate this movie? out of 10 or a letter grade, whatever you want to do.
Those are two vastly different things.
That's what I'm saying, whichever one you want to do.
Okay, well, I guess we'll do it out of 10. I'll probably go with the 7.
I'm like at a 6.5.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say 6.5.
Like, because I'm bouncing it back about certain things I did really like about it, about his portrayal. And I am glad it wasn't a cut and paste from the way the other Crow movies were done. But I still think there is a better Crow movie that can be made.
I agree completely.
That is our review. That is our open discussion in all shapes and forms of The Crow. Thank you, Junia.
You're welcome, Tyler. Thank you so much.
Really,
right now? That's a Robin, right?
I can't make bird sound.